Good evening. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are in City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the City Attorney's Office, the City's Clerk Office, and the City Planning Department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion of the meeting. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let us begin with roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Right, one more time, he's online. Commissioner Smith?
Here. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Okay, I can see you're talking, but we cannot hear you.
You can't hear me? It's not on my end. Zoom is picking it up.
Dean says he can hear him.
1 second.
I will work on that. Commissioner Rust?
Here.
Commissioner Steele?
Here.
Commissioner Grace?
Here.
Chairperson Larcher?
Here. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Please note, item 6 on the agenda, Newkirk East, will be open solely for the purpose of continuance. So if there's anyone here to testify for Newkirk East, we will not be taking public testimony this evening. Could I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda. We have several items on the consent agenda to approve the meeting's minutes of November 21st and the facts, findings, and conclusions for Washington Federal. Could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second to accept the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would briefly like to explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the items adheres to our comprehensive plan and our unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website in advance to testify. You may come to the microphones and chambers, or you will be unmuted on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on screen and our clerk will assist you to run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on the behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes to speak. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who wish to testify. If you wish to speak on a topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if on Zoom, press the raise hand button in the Zoom app, or if you're listening on a telephone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices such as a computer or a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we don't experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom, and you will no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all the testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to the questions or concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have an opportunity to discuss and hopefully make either final decisions or recommendations to city council as needed. We're going to go out of order this evening. We're going to actually start with item number 6, the Newkirk East. They request a continuance for preliminary plat.
Madam Chair. Commissioner Sandoval has joined us online as well.
Oh, okay. Welcome, Commissioner Sandoval. So we are going to open this for the sole purpose to have a continuance. Do we have a date in mind for this application?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we'd like it for the second meeting in January if possible.
Okay, can I get a motion to continue the application for Newkirk East for January 16th?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second to continue Newkirk East, file number 0048 for January 16th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is from JGT Architecture for annexation and zoning at 3970 East Overland Road, and we will begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So tonight we are here for an annexation with zoning for the property located at 3970 East Overland Road. The site consists of 1.120 acres. It is currently zoned R1 in Ada County. So the current use of the property is residential. It has several outbuildings on it. All the structures will be removed and the existing well and septic system will be abandoned as required. The applicant will be required to apply for a certificate of zoning compliance and design review for this application prior to building permit approval. They are requesting to construct a 4,800 square foot multi-tenant building with one side of it being a restaurant. These are the elevations that were submitted for this property. The building materials consist of stucco, stone, wood, and metal accent. Again, the full design review will be required to comply with our architectural standards upon review. Sorry. So this is the site plan. The applicant will be, is proposing water conserving landscaping along the front for the landscape buffer towards Overland, which will allow the applicant to reduce that landscape buffer by 50%. The applicant is also requesting a council waiver for the landscape buffer to the north of the property, adjacent to the residential property. They are asking to reduce it by to 15 feet from the 25 feet. That will be an action for council to consider. Again, this property, the future land use destination for this property is mixed use regional. This property is just over an acre in size and actually cannot accommodate mixed use on it. And that's why they are doing a multi-tenant building. One half of it will be a restaurant, and we have limited the uses for the other half of the building. So we have the restaurant, we limit it to professional services, retail, specialty shops. But what we did say, excluding any type of drive-through, because the property cannot accommodate a drive-through on here. Access to this property is off of South Topaz Avenue, which will be turned into a residential collector. They are to provide some right-of-way to the highway district for Topaz Avenue and for Overland. So basically, this is a straightforward application. It is an annexation, requesting the CG zoning for this. The property to the east of it is currently zoned CG. There have been no written testimony on this application. And in talking with the applicant, they are in full agreement with staff conditions for this application. So at this time, staff is then recommending approval for this with the conditions outlined in our staff report. And at this time, I will stand for any questions that the commission has.
Okay, would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jared Walgren. I'm with JGT Architecture, 1135 12th Avenue Road in Nampa, representing the applicant, who is the owner of the Dong Con Vietnamese restaurant in Boise. He's looking to acquire this property and build a building for himself and occupy it with his business. We've read the staff report. We agree with all the findings and conditions with that one concern of the buffer to the north. It's a fairly shallow site. So to have the large buffer along Overland and the large residential buffer, it makes the building footprint impractically narrow. And so the applicant is requesting that reduction from 25 to 15 feet. We also have a cross access required to the property to the east. And so that kind of gears the site to be configured the way that we've done it. That's really the only way we can do it. So that large buffer just makes it really challenging to get a building in there that's not too narrow. So he's excited to move his business to Meridian, and we're looking forward to your recommendation to council, and we'll address that buffer at that time. And I'm glad to stand for any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Commissioner Grace?
Chair, thank you. Jared, have you talked to the owner to the north? And first question. Second question is, are you going to mitigate, if you were to get that waiver, are you going to mitigate that in any way by putting trees or fence or landscaping or things like that?
Yes, so the applicant did have a neighborhood meeting and spoke with the owner of that property in the summer. She did write a letter of support. Unfortunately, she passed away shortly after that. So the property is currently unowned. It's in probate. So that's the status of that property. And yes, we'll for whatever reduction we have for that, we intend to load it up with evergreen screening, a fence, a berm, everything we can do to provide as much a buffer as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No one wishes to testify.
Is there anybody in chambers that would like to say anything in regard to this application? We'll take her, and then if you'd like to come up after. Good evening. If you can just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Lynette Adsid. I live at 1360 South Topaz Avenue. I'm just north of the person that passed away.
Okay.
So, excited to see a Thai restaurant come in. Not excited about the traffic that it'll create. It's really hard to get out on to Overland between 5 and 6. It's basically a right-hand turn only. Yeah, to go left is, you're just going to get in an accident. I'd also like to ask the applicant if they've considered the expansion of Overland from 5 to 7 lanes, if that's in their plan.
Okay, we'll ask him to address that when he comes back up.
Thank you. Those are my concerns.
Thank you. Sir, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, my name's Carl Babbitt, 1671 East Time Zone, Meridian, Idaho. Just had a question. Topaz, is it still scheduled to be widened to go back towards Top Golf and stuff? I was wondering if this development has enough room if they widen that road.
We'll ask the applicant to address that, but we were under the impression, based on what staff comments, is that ACHD is going to make that a collector street. So yes, it will be widened,
Okay. thanks.
but we don't know when. So were there anything else that you just want to know that? Okay. Anybody else in chambers that would like to ask a question? Can the applicant come back forward and answer some of our questions, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Jared Walgren, JGT Architecture. The question regarding Overland, yes, we are accounting for the right-of-way. The property line is currently near the back of a sidewalk, and if you see from the site plan, I think it's roughly an additional 14 foot of right-of-way take to get, I believe it's 62 feet from center line of road. Topaz is a little less clear to us, but we have plenty of room in that direction to shift our building as needed to account for any right-of-way that comes up with more detailed ACHD review. So we will certainly account for that.
Have you heard from ACHD as far, or do you know like what their plans are? Is it within 2 years, 5 years?
We haven't heard.
You haven't heard? Okay. Staff, do we know anything about ACHD's plans for Topaz or?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, so ACHD at some point will be widening Overland. I don't know exactly when, but that is in the plan. That's why they're acquiring additional right of way. I think it's like 5 lanes now and it's supposed to be widened, I think somewhere to 7 lanes along there. So they are planning on widening that. I do not have a time frame at this moment for you. I can reach out to the person who asked that question and get that information to her.
And Topaz, is that going to go all the way through to Topgolf?
That I don't know, but I know they are getting additional right away from this property owner, so there is something in the plan for that too.
Commissioners, do we have any other questions for the applicant before we close the public testimony? All right, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to close the public testimony, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public testimony for 3970 East Overland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think the only concern I have is that what you can't see in this picture is to the west of this development or this proposed building are houses. The good news is that there's not a drive-through and Thai restaurants are lovely, but I don't think there's ever really 100 people there all at the same time. So, but it will create a little bit more in and out traffic on Topaz. But if it does become a collector street, it should be able to accommodate whatever additional cars that this generates. And it's going to have a shared parking lot going east as well.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
this area here has been part of some hot debates in our past. So, you know, and this is kind of one of the first dominoes to fall out there. So we kind of knew this was coming. I'm glad to see that it's, you know, there's no doubting this is a commercial deployment here. So that's nice. We don't have to worry about anything like that going on. But that was some of the worry of some of the residents that were there. But, you know, as more of this land gets purchased and subdivided and developed and everything, I think a lot more of this is going to come in. And I mean, it's in line with what's happening to the north of it. You know, it's kind of sad to see some of it go away, but that's what's happening in the area. So I have no concerns with what's going on in there. And I mean, council will let them know if they can get the setback that they want. So I'm in favor.
Okay. Any other comments or motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2024-0053 as presented in the staff report of the hearing date December 5th, 2024, with no modifications.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve file number 2024-0053. 43, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item up is the Fuldesi, am I saying that right? Fuldesi Reserve request annexation at 3915 North 10 Mile Road. And we will start with the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. So next item on the agenda is the annexation for Fuldesi Reserve. The applicant is requesting annexation of 3.31 acres of land for the construction of approximately 46,000 square feet of industrial space in the IL zoning district. The site consists of 3.31 acres of land and is located at 3915 North 10 Mile Road. As shown on the screen, the current zoning is RUT in Ada County, and the flume designation is mixed-use non-residential. The current use of the property is residential with several existing buildings on the property. All the structures will be removed and existing well and septic will be abandoned as required. The applicant has indicated the proposed uses for the site will be industrial buildings for industrial users. The use of industrial buildings aligns well with the mixed-use non-residential future land use designation, which accommodates a range of commercial and industrial users. Access is proposed off North 10 Mile Road and Arterial Street through a single curb cut. The applicant has condensed the 3 access points along North 10 Mile Road into a single access point in the center of the property. Additionally, cross-access shall be stubbed to the property to the north and south. The applicant has chosen to do a water conserving design to reduce the landscape buffer along 10 Mile by 50%. So that would reduce it down to 12.5 feet. The landscaping will be analyzed with the CZC submittal. The developer is proposing 3 industrial buildings with a mix of 1- and 2-story tenant spaces comprised of stucco, brick veneer, stucco wainscot, metal panels, and metal panel roofing with moderate to large setbacks from the street and frontages exceeding the required 30% windows along streets. Staff is recommending approval with condition or with a development agreement and has not received any written testimony. I'll stand for questions at this time.
Okay, would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening.
Good evening. Is this- Madam Chair, Commissioners,
You can say your name and address for the record.
my name is Steve Thiessen. I'm representing the applicant, Hatch Design Architecture. Address is 200 West 36th Street in Boise.
Okay, just speak up in the microphone so we can hear you.
Get this thing working right here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And tonight, we're looking at Fuldesi, is the pronunciation on that, Fuldesi.
Oh,
Is
did I
there-
say it wrong?
It's okay.
Fuldesi, is that how you say it?
Fuldesi.
Fuldesi, okay.
And this is an annex with zoning to IL. Not control this.
If the mouse doesn't work, you might want to try the arrows
Okay.
on the keyboard.
I'm not seeing it. Oh, there we are. Okay. Thank you. Huh? I cannot. Huh? I know, I hope I- Oh. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
Sorry
awesome.
about that.
You're good.
Got this figured out. Okay, here's our vicinity map. This is off of 10 Mile. We're just north of the water treatment facility. I wanted to give a little background on the name itself. We can go back. There we are. The former owner of the property's name is Fuldesi and from Hungary. And this, the name means strong connection to the land and nature. And and the place itself, a sense of being, of belonging to a specific place. There is a walnut tree to the west of just to the west, kind of center of the property that will be preserved. And this walnut tree was planted from seed from Hungary.
Oh, fabulous.
Cool to go with the history of the facility there, of the place there. As stated before, the subject property is currently county RUT. We're proposing an IL zoning, and we are surrounded by IL. Again, the future land use map is mixed use, non-residential, and the uses proposed are consistent with the comp plan. And this is our site plan. Again, we're proposing industrial flex buildings and to handle a variety of uses that are allowed or conditional in the zone. And then also, my site plan got a little messed up there, but we did add the north and south access as staff was requesting.
Okay.
And this is a rendering of the property along 10 Mile. And yes, there's lots of materials used, glazing. It'd be a very nice looking facility. This slide here kind of shows the industrial side of it, the glass doors, the use of warehousing. So very good looking building. And I'll stand for questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I did have one question, Steve.
Hold on.
Sorry. What,
It's okay.
I don't know that I read or heard, what are you proposing that's going to go in these buildings? Or maybe a sense of what types of things might go in these buildings?
Okay, Madam Chair, Commissioner Grace. It's more, I guess we're looking at contractor offices, warehousing, but just kind of a wide range that would fit within the IL permitted uses and conditional uses. I think they're geared towards contractor offices and warehousing.
Okay, I just thought I read maybe, and I may have read, or I may have incorrectly thought that they were going to be storage facilities. I know you're surrounded by storage facilities there, but.
Yeah, I can address that. These were originally proposed as like large storage facilities.
Okay.
But the applicant has changed the use.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Commissioners? No, I think we're good this time.
All right, thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody in chambers or anybody signed up to testify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No one has signed up.
Is there anybody in chambers that would like to testify? Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Jeff Hatch. My address is 200 West 36th Street, Boise, Idaho. Commissioners, I appreciate your consideration of our annexation this evening. We've spent a fair amount of time with the owner of this development who intends to operate his business here as well as maintaining these facilities. And wanted to put a thoughtful development into Meridian, but also something that is an opportunity, surrounded by not necessarily unsightly industrial projects, but something that can enhance this area despite, the industrial nature around it and really elevate the expectation of Meridian for industrial land. So sincerely appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. Steve, did you have anything else that you would like to add before we close the public hearing? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing for Waldushi Reserve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Seal.
This one seems pretty straightforward. I'm actually glad to see that it's not going to be storage in there, to be honest. We have a lot of storage in that area. I live there, so kind of nice to see this is going to come in and kind of help round out, some of what's available in that area for it. So kind of looks like there's been some rumblings of kind of a classic car component going in somewhere in that area. So scratch my head on that one a little bit. I don't know. I've heard rumors, but we'll see. So I think this is going to fit into the neighborhood well, and it's probably pretty hard to, being right next to the wastewater treatment facility, to get in something that's going to kind of help dress up the area and bring in more business.
Right. And I appreciate you're going to save the walnut tree too. So that's a little green space in there. So that's good. All right, commissioners, any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Rust?
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2024-0055 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of December 5th, 2024 with no modifications.
Second?
It's been moved and second to recommend file 0055 to City Council. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, well, we're just going to keep kind of going along here. The next application is Nicholas Rinker requests annexation at 330 North Linder Road, and we will start with the staff report.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, next item on the agenda is the annexation for 330 Linder Road. The applicant is requesting annexation of 1 acre of land for the proposed use of vehicle sales or rental and service. The site consists of 1 acre of land located at 330 North Linder Road. As shown on the screen, the zoning is R1 in Ada County, and the flume designation is general industrial. The subject property is part of an enclave area surrounded by city annex property. Annexation of this land will provide more efficient provisions for city services. Industrial uses exist to the west, across North Linder Road, to the south and to the east. Single-family residence does exist to the north in Ada County. This property is designated as general industrial on the flume designation. The use of vehicle sale or rental and service is consistent with the comprehensive plan for general industrial designation. The existing residence is proposed to remain as the main office for the vehicle sales business. The building shall abandon well and septic and connect to city services at the time of annexation in accord with the UDC. Additionally, the current structure proposed to remain will be non-conforming if approved with a 35-foot street setback required for the IL zoning. Any future development on the site will be required to be in compliance of this setback. The applicant is also requesting a council waiver to reduce the 25-foot landscape buffer to the adjoining residential to the north. The property owners for the property to the north did provide a letter in support of this. The applicant is proposing water-wise landscaping, which allows the landscape buffer along Linder Road to be reduced to 12.5 feet. One full driveway access exists to the site via Linder, and this is proposed to be eliminated, and the applicant will share access with the property to the south through a cross-access agreement. Staff is recommending approvals and has not received any written testimony at this time, and I'll stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm not the applicant. I'm the applicant's representative. I represented him for the purchase of the property, but if you can't hear with us to answer questions.
Okay, very good. If you can just say your name and address for the record.
My name is Matt Wilkie, PO Box 7, Middleton, Idaho, 83644.
Okay,
I'd like to say we agree with the staff report and recommendation for approval, and appreciate the approval there. The applicant agrees with the terms, and as stated in the staff report, it is in a future industrial area shown as general, and the future land use map, and we do have industrial properties contiguous to the south and east already. The neighbors have been fantastic to work with. They seem to have the same vision for the area as the applicant. The neighborhood meeting went well. So that's always a great sign. And the neighbor to the north, as was stated in the staff report, has worked with the applicant to reduce the landscape buffer. They would anticipate sometime in the future probably be industrial as well. On the development agreement, we just had a couple items to bring up there. One is it does say in the development agreement no more than 3 cars shall be displayed along North Linder Road at any one time. We do have a slight issue with the ITD requirements for a dealer license. So once he does seek or receive hopefully approval for the annex and rezone, his plan would be to apply for the dealership's license through ITD, and they need to have a display area large enough to display 5 vehicles of the type the dealer is licensed to sell. And so right now, being limited to 3, there's a little bit of conflict there that needs a workaround. But in his latest site plan that's dated November 4th, 2024, you can see the 4 or the 5 display lots on the frontage there. And the ITD just requires that to be along the office there. And he's got plenty of room there to display those 5. I don't think it would be an eyesore for automotive and the kind of vehicles he sells. That would be our one request there. Also, the driveway stub to the north for cross access. The applicant does not intend to remove the home on front, and intends to convert that to an office for the dealer business. And so cross access would probably not be actually very effective in the future, because it would be in the way, that building will be in the way. It's not going to be removed. He did work with the southern landowner for access there, and will come in from that cross access, which is great. But that northern one is going to be probably not. It's probably not going to work out, just because of the way the lot's designed. And this is a small project. ACHD didn't require a traffic impact study due to the low traffic generated, and it's really not large enough to, I don't think, really warrant a cross access to the north, unless this site were to be completely changed in the future, which would require another application and see everyone. That was our comment there. Also, the applicant to install a 6-foot privacy fence, that's no issue at all. He's actually done that on the north already. So he's matched the east and south boundary, done some work on the property to clean it up while they're working on the application here. So that's all great. So other than that, it's a great staff report, and we appreciate the recommendation for approval, and I stand for questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for Matt?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Steele?
I guess it's more of a concern, and maybe staff can help with it, but with asking for the reduced buffer space and everything with the house where it is, how is that going to be impacted when they widen Linder? Because they're going to do the overpass for Linder, and I would imagine that they're probably going to accelerate widening that. So to me, I just have a concern that basically the house structure that's left there, even though it's converted to an office, is that something that's going to be able to even stay?
I believe I read in the staff report that there was, and maybe staff can talk more on this, but that because of the recent work on frontage there on Linder, it wasn't going to be required to expand past that. It's all pretty much new construction, new sidewalk, and new expansion there already. It's already widened. So I don't know how that would work with the long-term future plan, but I thought it was already built to that standard.
Staff, can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Steele, as far as with that, so Linder has been widened to 5 lanes here already, and there is no planned further improvement on Linder Road at this time from ACHD, so it is built out to its ultimate capacity at this point. That could change at some point in the future. At that time, that I have a similar concern, correct, at 35 foot, it would create a non-conforming use or because of the setback requirement in the IL zone, which is also part of the reasoning for the cars, the display area. We want the building to be prominent on the property and not have cars displayed in front of it. It's kind of the design for Meridian because we don't want cars displayed, in front of all the buildings in these areas. We'd like the buildings to be prominent. But, as far as Linda Road, at a later point, ACHD, it is built out to its ultimate capacity with the 5 lanes. It was already done. There's actually a moratorium to not cut into Linda Road at this time at that point because of how new it is. I believe it in 2026 is when you're able to cut into Linda Road in this portion. But I guess, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Perfect.
So Nick, who makes the decision for his question in regard to 3 cars displayed or 5 cars displayed? That's not a city question. Is that an ITD question?
So that's a great, honestly, I didn't know about that issue. I'm not familiar with the dealer license through ITD. Definitely a conversation I can have with ITD and the applicant before our council hearing to see if they're willing to work with us on that or if there needs to be some bend on our end. I think either way we can get there to where the applicant won't have an issue with that so he can get his dealer license. Really the intent behind that as far as staff is to not have vehicles in front of the building. Yeah.
Right. So just understand that, all powerful ITD has their own way of doing things. So it may be the way it is, and you'll have to decide if that's in your best interest or not.
Yes, Madam
So-
Chair.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Grace.
So with regard to the development agreement and the 35-foot setback, is that related to any expansion and the existing home structure is sort of exempt from that? Or does that capture that existing building?
It's 2 feet off. So it's they need to be 35 or 37, one way or the other, I believe. And so the way I understand it is as long as he doesn't remodel that home or add on to the structure that's there, then it can stay non-conforming. But maybe someone can educate me more on that one. Commissioners, I'm just not sure that he doesn't need to adjust the size of the home. If he's going to do any development on there, it'd be more or like a maintenance shop in the future, which wouldn't be attached to that structure. So it could stay in place as it sits.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get a sense if you're asking us to modify that DA, or are you, I guess I'm not sure what you're asking us.
I'm just, I guess on your question, Madam Chair, Commissioners, on the question regarding the structure being non-conforming with the 35-foot setback, any future expansion will require compliance. So he's not planning on expanding that structure. So it's fine as it sits, it's just as long as, unless we're seeing something wrong there, I don't think that's an issue. Okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grace. Yeah, as far as with that, so really any further intensification or redevelopment of the property would require it to be brought into compliance. That's really the intent. So, if they decide to redevelop this site in 5 years' time into something else, essentially that building will have to be torn down. That's correct.
For staff also, the shared access for the north and the south, is that something that the city is requiring?
Madam Chair, that is correct. Yeah, we are going to continue to ask for that cross-access easement. As far as where it's going to be on site, it doesn't necessarily need to be in alignment with the one to the south. It can be further back on the property. It's just essential for us to consolidate these access points on these arterial roadways to prevent, a lot of curb cuts like we see on Eagle Road. We're trying to prevent that in the future to where we have a lot of traffic coming off these arterial roadways into curb cuts where it creates conflict points and danger to citizens, correct?
So, in regard to that request from the city, the reason it's there is that you're the applicant today, and then you're developing the site because you're the one who's annexing to the city. But let's pretend it's 10 years from now. and the current owner chooses to sell and it becomes something else. So we have no, as the city has no ability to create that cross access if we don't do it at the beginning of the annexation. So you can work with staff with that, but the north and south, cross access will be required. So you'll have to work with staff and kind of figure that part out.
Madam Chair, if I can just elaborate on those comments a little bit more. So you are correct. I agree with the applicant. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense today because of the way that they may function with a car lot. They want secure inventory. You don't want people going through your site. In instances like that, we still require the cross access. However, we say if it does changes to a different use other than that, it will be required. Or doesn't mean they shouldn't build it, but at least you could put parameters on that if this happens, then they do it. If not, then they don't have to do it. The other option is the code allows the council to waive that requirement as well. So again, it's really something that the council could take under consideration as they move forward in front of them for their annexation request.
Okay. Are your neighbors right now to the north and south of you residential?
The neighbor to the north, Madam Chair, is R1 still. It has not rezoned, but the neighbor to the south is light industrial, and to the east, and I believe to the west across Linder as well, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff.
Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
Madam Chair, no one has signed up.
Is there anybody in chambers that would like to speak in regard to this application? Matt, did you have anything else to add, or are you good? Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing for application 0048. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This one's weird because I travel Linder all the time and it's changing, but it hasn't changed yet. And on the west side of the road, what is it, A1 Heating, and there's a t-shirt shop and, Ace Auto Body and Meridian Storage and all that kind of stuff. So it's been there, but on the east side of the road, it's always been residential. And I guess this is one of the, not the first one, but one of the few that are really starting to happen. So to me, it seems out of place, but then again, it's all going to be kind of, dominoing that way anyway. So,
Yeah, Madam Chair, my biggest concern was the residential neighbor to the north, and it sounds like that neighbor has been very agreeable and has agreed to the buffer adjustment, and so that was my kind of biggest concern because they seem to be the last residential in that area. So that does seem to be the way this area is going, and therefore I wouldn't want to stop that progression.
all right, any other comments? Do we have any feelings about the cross access that we want to share with City Council, or should we let that kind of ride and let them decide whether they're not going to support a waiver or not?
Madam Chair, I would leave it for City Council
City Council.
personally. I don't know if everybody else feels that way or not.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Rust.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2024-0048 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of December 5th, 2024 with no modifications.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve item number 2024-0048. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to carry on. For 2024-0037, Brighton requests a rezone and a preliminary plat for the Pollard North subdivision, and we will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The next applications before you are a request for a rezone and a preliminary plat. There is also an accompanying development agreement modification application that will be heard by City Council. That does not require action tonight. This site consists of 19.76 acres of land. It's zoned R8, generally located a quarter-mile north of West Chinden Boulevard at the north end of North Levi Lane on the north side of West Waverton Drive. The subject property is part of a larger area annexed with R8 zoning in 2019 and included in a development agreement and a preliminary plat for Pollard subdivision. The property was approved to develop with 74 building lots for conventional single-family residential homes, independent living units for 55 and older, and an 88-bed assisted living facility. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is medium-density residential. The applicant is requesting council approval of a modification to the existing development agreement for a new agreement for the residential portion of the development with an updated development plan. The approved plan is for the development of 74 building lots for conventional single-family residential homes, independent living units for 55 and older, and an 88-bed assisted living facility. And that plan is shown there on the top of the screen. The proposed plan is shown on the bottom, and it's for 177 single-family residential detached and attached homes. A rezone of 21.95 acres of land is proposed from the R8 to the TNR, which is the traditional neighborhood residential zoning district. The rezone to TNR allows more lots to develop on the property, as there is no minimum lot size or street frontage requirement in the district, and a lesser setback is allowed, as opposed to that in the R8 district. A preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 177 building lots, 26 common lots on 19.76 acres of land in the proposed TNR zoning district. The plat is proposed to develop in one final plat phase. The minimum lot size proposed is 2,238 square feet with an average lot size of 3,062 square feet. The gross density of the development is 8.06 units per acre with a net density of 14.23 units per acre, which is consistent with the medium density residential future land use map designation and the proposed TNR zoning district. A mix of single-family residential, detached, and attached units are proposed with front-loaded and alley-loaded options. Conventional front-loaded detached homes are proposed along the perimeter boundary to the north and east, which will transition to existing and future homes, with alley-loaded attached and detached units internal to the development and along the southern boundary of the site. The applicant is requesting a waiver from City Council to the block face standards in the UDC for the TNR district to extend the face of blocks 1 through 6 along West Flat Rock Street and West Waverton Drive beyond the 500-foot standard. 750 feet is allowed with a pedestrian connection. They are requesting block faces ranging from 620 to 875 feet in length due to the location of the streets approved with previous entitlements and the proposed rezone from R8 to the TNR district, which has reduced block face standards. A 20-foot wide street buffer is required along the portion of West Waverton Drive designated as a collector street east of Levi Avenue. Off-street parking will be required based on the number of bedrooms per unit. On-street parking is also available along internal streets. A minimum of 15% or 2.96 acres of common open space is required to be provided with development that meets the quality and qualified standards listed in the UDC. The applicant proposes a total of 3.53 acres or 17.86% qualified open space, consisting of several open grassy areas exceeding 5,000 square feet in area, linear open space, the street buffer along the eastern portion of West Waverton Drive, a collector street, and parkways along local residential streets as shown. This does comply with and exceeds the minimum UDC standards for such. Amenities totaling a minimum of 4 points are required to be provided based on the area of the development. The applicant proposes a small 3,900 square foot dog park with a waste station, which is 1.5 points, and a picnic area on a site 5,000 square feet or greater in size, which is 2 points. And these are from the quality of life category. and a tot lot with benches for seating, which is 1 point from the recreation activity area category, which complies with and exceeds the minimum standards. The amenities are required to comply with the associated standards for such in the UDC. Several conceptual building elevations were submitted as shown for 2-story detached and attached single-family residential homes. A variety of materials are proposed, including vertical and horizontal lap siding, board and batten siding, stucco, and fenestration, with masonry accents in a variety of colors and design elements and features with varying roof profiles and wall modulation that demonstrates the high quality of development proposed. All single-family residential attached structures are subject to the residential design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony has been received from Eli Bensky, Brighton Corporation, in agreement with the staff report conditions. Staff is recommending approval with the provisions in the staff report. Staff will stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come forward? Sure.
Good evening. Eli Bensky, 2929 West Navigator Drive, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. Thank you. As Sonia mentioned, we're here for a rezone preliminary plat development agreement for Pollard North. Pollard North is located north of Chinden Boulevard and east of State Highway 16. I know Levi Lane is a little bit smaller, so this probably helps you better adequate where it is. The property is designated medium-density residential in the future land use map. We're not proposing a modification to the flume. We are proposing a modification to the zoning. It's currently zoned R8. As Sonia mentioned, we're proposing TNR for 21.9 acres. We believe TNR is best fit for this property because to the south, we have commercial, and to the north, we have a mix of medium-low density residential with bigger lots. This allows us to accommodate both the commercial side as well as providing the buffer to this, to the north. In the preliminary plat, we are including 19.7 acres, 177 single-family residential lots, 21 common lots, and then again, the rezone area of 21.9 acres. Within Pollard North, we're providing a few amenities. Here in this first image, you'll notice that we have a covered picnic area and a tot lot. This is creating a central park area for residents. We're also providing a dog park here in the second image. Below, you'll see that we have multiple pedestrian walkways, creating connectivity within this community as well as the neighboring communities. We're offering a variety of home types. We have 4. We have 2 different conventional style homes and 2 different carriage lane homes. One of those is going to be attached, the other is going to be detached. Here you'll notice on the bordering part of the property, we have in pink conventional A and in blue conventional D. These are wider lots to help better transition between the commercial and residential, as I had previously mentioned. And in orange and green, we have the carriage lane homes that are accessed via an alley. The carriage lane C are the detached and carriage lane B are the attached. With that, we want to agree with Planning and Zoning's recommendation for approval, and we ask Commission's recommendation for approval for the rezone preliminary plat development agreement for Pollard North. I'll stand for questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Did you have one?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Eli, thank you for that. Can you help me understand what's changed? What's changed with regard to the development that you need to now add a pretty significant number of homes and residents in this area?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. So previously, as mentioned, we had an assisted living here on the property. With a few other properties, we noticed that the valley actually doesn't have as great of a need. After COVID-19, the numbers dropped within the residents going into assisted living facilities, and we could not justify putting that in another development.
Okay. And follow up, Madam Chair, I heard what you said about the transition between commercial to residential and how these types of homes might be better. I'm just not, can you maybe convince me a little more or explain that a little more?
I'd love to. So I'm gonna go back to that image here. So as a whole site, you'll see here, up against Chinden, these two lots, or I guess the bigger pieces, there's multiple lots there, but those bigger pieces are all commercial. There's going to be a mix of uses there that are going to be serving this community. So there's going to be medical and then retail, office, things of the sort. When you are accessing this property, if you look at the properties behind the residential, they're all bigger lots. So to go from commercial to big lot residential, typically you want to see that buffer transition as mentioned in the comprehensive plan. So when you're looking at medium density on the flume, one of the recommendations for zoning is TNR, because TNR allows for or requires multiple home types. So here we have the higher density residential right up against that commercial to provide essentially that buffer. And then we put the wider lots on the back to say, essentially you're easing into it, kind of like a tide pool. You're going commercial, a little bit high residential, lower residential, and then you can access those bigger lots on the far back.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Sale?
do we have a map of any sort that shows kind of the alignment of the properties to the north? Just to show kind of the lot placement and things like that as it transitions. So, and it seems like the property to the north are very large lots, is kind of my understanding. I remember from files long ago.
Madam Chair, member of the commission, we may not, but I'll go ahead and see if I can generate one real quickly and drop it in there, and we'll pull it up as you continue to discuss the application.
Okay, because that's, share similar feelings with Commissioner Grace is with things that have changed. So if I remember right, the original use of some of the larger lots was going to be a hospital facility. This is what it seemed like. So that's changed to just basic medical facilities? Or just open commercial, whoever is going to land in there is going to land in there?
Ask for clarification. 1 minute.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Wardle, 2929 West Navigator Drive, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, the area south of Waverton, which is kind of the split between what we're talking about tonight. So north of Waverton is what we're talking about, and south of Waverton is the commercial. St. Alphonsus actually has purchased that property to the south. They own 16 acres, and their intent is to do two things, which is consistent with before. A medical office building would be their phase one, and then phase two would be a hospital. And so they are still planning on doing that. So their property is adjacent to Chinden and goes up to Waverton. And then the area that Eli's described is we're talking about the area north of Waverton, the 19 or 20 acres between Waverton and the property to the north. As it relates to the properties in question, directly to the north of us and to the west, this commission and the city council previously heard applications for Alden Ridge. Alden Ridge went through an annexation and rezone process. They received an R4 zoning and an R8 zoning directly. Their R8 is directly against us. We actually have matched up our lot widths to match their lot widths. When you look at the property on the east side, Fairborn, we did the same thing where our lot widths have matched their lot widths. There are two properties that are currently in the county. They're not brought into the city yet, but they're directly north of ours. One is 10 acres and the other is 5 acres. And we've provided access to them. And they also have access over into Fairborn. And I believe that the Alden Ridge provides an access to them as well. So at some point in the future, those properties will redevelop. But we did also, as it relates to our preliminary plat this time, kept the same lot widths as it related to those parcels previously. So we brought a preliminary plat into this commission and the city council, and it was approved. So we intentionally tried to maintain the same lot widths directly adjacent to the properties that have that we abut to the north, but we are transitioning slightly higher density to the south between us and the future commercial on the south side of Waverton.
Appreciate that.
And if I can just add one, I guess, clarification or a little bit of color to what Eli mentioned regarding the assisted living. We did previously receive a conditional use permit for that assisted living facility here. But as she mentioned, the economics of that are not favorable. We still have 2 other assisted living facilities that we have done. We had a third one that we were going to do, but again, the economics were such that it just didn't make sense. We did look at this revised plan once the St. Alphonsus project was moving forward and looked for opportunities to, yes, increase the density, but we also recognize that there are going to be services here that we did not anticipate before. And we feel like there's an opportunity for that at this time.
Commissioner Russ, did you have a question for the applicant before we open the?
I did, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those carriage homes, are those going to be for sale or for rent product?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Rust, good evening. We are plotting the entire project and the intent is that these would be for sale, but I will tell you that we have done for rent in some of our other projects as well. So I'm not going to say that they won't be, so that is on the table as a possibility that some of those paired homes could be for rent.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner
I didn't want
Grace?
to jump in front of you if you had a question, Madam Chair.
Wrong way?
No, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So I appreciate the width, the lot widths and lining those up with the abutting, I think, to the north and the east. But can you help me understand, that doesn't translate, excuse me, that's still translates into a significant increase in density and traffic and homes, and would it be accurate for me to conclude that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Grace, yes, any increase in density will have that equal amount of traffic related to it. So I would be giving you false hope that that is not the case.
Yeah.
But with that said, we have designed these in such a way that we are not just focused on a garage dominated type community. And so by bringing those homes and facing the street, facing Waverton, instead of what we typically do with collectors or streets like this, is we turn our back to them. There's no relationship with them. So we've tried to be very thoughtful in the design, also thoughtful in the placement of where the amenities are on the project, and providing what I would call some permeability north to south with a series of pathways that would allow that, instead of, walking down long stretches of road, you're really within about 300 feet of a pathway getting through as well. So yes, there will be. I will note, however, that one of the things that we have done with our project, and just stepping back a little bit, Pollard, we brought forward Pollard as a preliminary plat. And part of that was the construction of a couple of things. One was Levi Lane, which is a 5-lane road and paying for a signal. And the other one was the completion of Waverton, which is a collector road going to the east, which ultimately ties into Black Cat, which also has a signal. So the majority, I would say, of the traffic that will be here will go right out to Chinden Boulevard. and the traffic has been accommodated and has been addressed by the highway district. So yes, there will be more traffic, but we've actually not only anticipated, we have built in advance those roadways and have paid for signal. The only reason the signal's not there today is ITD continues to make their improvements on Highway 16. And once they get a little farther along, then they will do that. But the signal's already been paid for and it's in their workflow now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
Madam Chair, we have David Hitz.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. If you can state your name and address for the record?
Yep, David Hitz. I'm at 6669 North Elmstone Way, Meridian, 83646. I am right as that map, you've got that circle. I'm right about it, the edge of that circle. So my backyard backs right up to Waverton, right there. So I see the cars that are coming through. As I note, the 27 count that they got at the peak hours, I disagree. There's a lot of development still going in. I have seen this before a few years ago in Star, where we had a similar situation. Builder came in, rezoned, and all of a sudden we all had a lot of cars going through our roads and my kids couldn't play in the street. Brighton has a history of doing something similar to this as well, where they will rezone and then come back and say, actually, we want apartments. We want even more doors than we have right here. And so I actually really appreciate the concern that has been shared among the commissioners for the more than doubling amount of residents in these lots. And based on history of this particular developer, have no reason to believe why that wouldn't increase even more. So I have a lot of concerns, especially with young kids. I have 4, and there's a lot of kids in the community in Fairborn. One of the reasons that we moved to this community was because of how it was zoned before, knowing that there wouldn't be crazy amounts of cars, traffic, and that we could have a nice community as families and young families.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, we have Jacob Jensen.
Evening.
Jacob Jensen, 5011 West Caragana Street, also part of the Fairborn neighborhood. We were all extremely concerned when Waverton was built as a through street in this area. And then we see the zoning wanted to drastically increase the number of homes and residents in this area. As we know, Chinden gets backed up, often backs up clear to Black Cat. And when that happens, we're already seeing cars turn into Black Cat and use this through street to bypass traffic to get through, which is an extremely major concern. You're adding a lot more residents, and instead of waiting in 10, 15 minutes of traffic, how many of them are just going to turn into Black Cat to bypass to get to Levi? Fairborn is full of children. It's a very wonderful neighborhood and community for kids. They all play in the parks and areas there, and we're extremely concerned for the safety of our children with adding so many more homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, we have David Duro. I apologize.
Good job on pronunciation, by the way. I'm David Duro. I own the property just to the west. It's the buildings between this subdivision and Highway 16. We got a couple of buildings out there starting about 7 years ago. And when we got our buildings approved, one thing that was very important to the neighbors and also to the zoning was the space. And we were, neighbors it was we're up against the rim here and had nice houses, and the space was important. We have a lot of landscaping was important. We had to have a lot of landscaping. We had 35-foot setbacks, even up against the highway. And to me, this seems inconsistent with what the idea for this area was. It was supposed to be low density, up against the rim, and it seems inconsistent with what was ideated or what was thought about when this area was being laid out of it, was being planned. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have Kyle Ensler.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time and service and for the work that planning has done. My name is Kyle Ensler. My address, a few of them there, is 5720 North Old School Lane, 7000 North Pollard Lane, 6870 North Pollard Lane. So I'm both the homeowner in this area and the developer of Alden Ridge to the north, which is directly to the north of the proposed application. So to start, I strongly disagree that the proposed zoning change that would allow nearly twice the density of the current R8 standards creates a better transition to the neighbors to the north. And that's primarily what I'd like to talk about. So when I decided to purchase and develop land here and build our personal residence, it was based on the City of Meridian's future land use map with the designated R8 zoning and the currently approved development agreement for Pollard North. These plans designated this area as an R8 zoning with R4 zoning to the north, aligning with the comprehensive plan. To comply with the comprehensive plan goal number 3.07.01A and staff recommendations, when we were planning Alden Ridge, we incorporated an R8 zoning along its southern border complemented by a 20-foot, 5-foot common area buffer to ensure compatibility with Brighton's project and to preserve the neighborhood's character. Additionally, the future land use map shows the area directly to the east of Alden Ridge and north of the proposed application currently zoned as RUT as a future R4. Considering this, I disagree that the applicant has met the goal number 3.07.01A, which requires the creation of a site design compatible with surrounding uses through buffering, screening, transitional densities, and best site design practices. The property in question is currently zoned R8. The applicant is now requesting a zoning change to TNR, along with a new design that permits higher density than R8 zoning would allow given the setback requirements. This zoning change would reduce setbacks and enable even a greater density increase, nearly double. It's crucial to note that the adjacent properties to the north and east are also zoned R8, and comprehensive plan designates the entire area as R8. That proposed zoning change is inconsistent with the designations and incompatible with the area. While the applicant may be meeting the 15% open space requirement, TNR zoning drastically reduces yard space. So with them saying that we're having homes facing the street, what that really means is that they have rear load garages, which reduces their backyards, which if you double the density, I just don't think that that 15% open space is going to accommodate all the neighbors in this area, which is going to push that to our subdivision to the north where we only have 41 larger lots. Moreover, approving this zoning change induces risks of further incompatibility. Once rezoned, the applicant could return with a different design that complies with the TNR standards, but deviates even further from the community's expectations and character. At that point, the community would have limited recourse to address these concerns, undermining the zoning process and leaving neighborhood properties vulnerable. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the Commission to deny recommending this application for rezoning in the accompanying plan. While I respect Brighton's contributions to our community, Mr. Wardle and his team's efforts, it's only fair to the families in our community to remain true to the zoning that has been approved and designated in Meridian's land use map. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, no one else has signed up.
Is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak?
Evening. Scott Willoughby. I live at 6800 North Elmstone Way, just in the Fairborn community.
Okay.
Just another concern, what a lot of my neighbors have said is that pushing that traffic down Waverton through our community. We already see it come through there. I think that, and the other thing with the houses facing the street, that's going to be cars parked along the street most likely, which is also going to congest things more. And then I also think the green space that they did for that amount of people, that it's just continued to change and be more populated isn't enough, and it's just going to push everybody into our community, which, I mean, we bought there for that style of living. And I feel like I live right across from the park there, that most people are going to come down there because honestly, that green space is not large for that amount of people. So those are my concerns. Again, the traffic, lots of kids, I myself, the green zone, and it's just too dense in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I keep forgetting to ask about our Zoom people. No, go ahead. And is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak? Come on up. Do we have anybody on Zoom too? Okay. Don't want to forget those folks. Hi, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Hi, yes, my name is Leah Taylor. I live at 7,000 North Pollard, so I'm on a ridge lot directly north of this proposed zoning change as well. And I'm also in opposition to the zoning change. The applicant, let's see. I don't think it's fair for Brighton to come in and recommend such a big change. It seems like there's a pattern of this in the past, and if they wanted to do this plan originally, they should have proposed it then, but chances are they didn't, because they were hoping to make these changes in smaller increments, which are a little bit easier to get by. When we moved here, we also paid attention to the current zoning and the current plan for that area. And I don't think it's fair for the residents that are already here to make such a drastic change. And, you guys also made that zoning approval, and I don't think it's fair for you guys to go back and make that change. Like has already been mentioned, there is not enough green space. Those lot sizes are very small, and they will be using the green spaces of the neighboring communities who pay for upkeep, and it's just doubling the number of residents is going to have a significant impact on the neighboring communities. Brighton said that they accounted for the extra traffic with the light and the road and all of that, but they didn't account or make adjustments for all the extra people. It's not just traffic, it's the people that will be using the space and using the space of the neighboring communities. I also had a question. Brighton said that they made the adjacent lots to the neighboring communities the same size, but how many are those how many lots are those? I don't know the number. I'm sure he can answer that, but I mean, it's one line of houses. The Alden Ridge community that will be nearby is only what did he say, 41 homes. So if he's just talking about making those lots that are adjacent, that's really a small portion of their community that is adjacent. The rest of it is nowhere near equivalent in size or space or use. The other thing that I wrote down that I was going to say that I cannot remember now. I can't remember, but I just hope that you guys will oppose the zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk,
Madam
is there
Chair.
another one? Oh, come on up. Evening.
Thank you for having us. My name is Jade Ensler. I'm at 5720 North Old School or West Old School Lane in Meridian, 83646. My property is directly north of the proposed change. And I'd like to make sure that you do know that my neighbors to the east are on 5 acres and to the east of them on 15 acres. So they do not match up lot to lot on that. And when they were advertising or sending out the, assigned forms that you have to send out to the neighborhood, a lot of it said, hey, this is so similar to Fairborn, and this is advertising it like Fairborn, where Fairborn has ridge lots. It's similar to the Alden Ridge lots, and then a little bit smaller, and then kind of your standard Meridian size home lot as well. That's not true, right? Because they back up, the lots that back up to Fairborn do match, and the lots that back up to Alden Ridge do match, which Alden Ridge matched their lots because of what was already there. So they would have had something different, but they were asked to match lots to that. So I think there was a little bit of false advertising there when sending out messages to the neighborhood, for one. And I don't think they can say at all that they're anything like Fairborn, as they have multi-million-dollar homes. Sorry, I get nervous when I speak.
You're fine.
Multi-million-dollar homes on the ridge and million-dollar homes, and then, you know, some and other very nice properties. So I wanted to clarify that. And then, you know, when they had the assisted living center in there, that's little to no traffic. You know, you get people who work in the assisted living and then, you know, some visitors here and there. You know, my grandma's in assisted living. There's not a lot of people that visit every day, unfortunately. So the traffic from that compared to adding double the homes in there is a huge difference in the traffic and the use and everything like that. So I obviously strongly oppose and appreciate you guys listening and taking time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to come up? Hi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chase Taylor. I live on 7,000 North Pollard Lane, just in the back, you know, just north of where the proposal is. I agree with my neighbors, agree with what they've had to say, but also just kind of note that, you know, this is not the first time. I mean, I feel like this is the second, maybe third time that they've come back with changes. And if we get it rezoned to a different zone, you know, what it's going to change again. And it really is not matching up with the neighborhood. I have little kids that ride along on their bikes and sidewalks and all that. With this much new traffic, it just seems like I might just have to keep them at home. So concerned about another change and another map of what they want to do. So appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers that'd like to speak? And we don't have anybody online?
Madam Chair, no.
Would the applicant like to come forward and answer some of the concerns?
Madam Chair, for the record, again, John Wardle with Brighton. Appreciate the opportunity to come up and just kind of talk for a couple minutes to clarify a few things that were mentioned. First off, when we made the decision to make a change, the first thing we did look at is what was our previous preliminary plat approval. And the big change here was we did remove the assisted living. But as it related to the other single family lots that were adjacent to what is proposed to be Alden Ridge and to Fairborn, we matched those. We matched actually the widths of what Alden Ridge had. Our lots before were 44, they went to 50. In fact, when you looked at the other side, we had preliminary platted lots against, that's shown here as well. The area against the 5 acre and 15 acre, which have not been annexed and zoned, we actually reduced by about 2 or 3 lots overall in that stretch as well, as it is laid in there. So we did try to look at what was there, but candidly, we did also look at how could we create a plan that would be relevant with the future commercial that's coming. I mean, we made a pretty focused effort here. I'm, I guess, a little concerned about the characterization about a bait and switch. I'm not sure where that comes from. It's pretty easy to say that we've been in here several times to change the plan. I think this is the first time we've come in to request a change on this project. And it really was because of function of the market. The assisted living isn't viable. And we thought it would be, and it's not. So we looked at the entire plan. And like I said, looking specifically at how we would address our neighbors to the north and to the east specifically. As it relates to this overall, we have made an investment here. That's not the only decision that should be considered, but there are utilities that we've put in, sewer, water, that benefit both Alden Ridge and the stud finder's property the other side, so that their developments could occur. Those were expenses that we carried. We also made investments into the transportation system of building a 5-lane road, which is Levi Lane, and connecting Waverton over to Fairborn, which was anticipated to be a collector road. So we completed those improvements. In fact, Levi Lane really only needed to be a 3-lane road, but given the growth and anticipation of what would happen on Chinden Boulevard, we actually worked with the Highway District and with ITD and came up with a solution that it could be 5 lanes to handle multiple queuing opportunities as the interchange at Highway 16 would be built out. With all of that said, we do feel like we have not only looked at how to interface with the neighbors, but also to come up with a variety of housing. Most communities are very limited in what they are. You have a conventional home, which is a front load, and they're all exactly the same. And we've been able to come up with a plan that allows 4 different home or lot sizes with multiple home types, which will provide a nice transition from the commercial, which is CG in nature to the south, up to what eventually we would have as TNR. There'd also be the R8 and the R4 to the north and to the east. So again, we do agree with the staff report and the recommended approval conditions that are in there, and we request your referral for approval to the City Council.
Commissioners, do we have any other questions for the applicant at this time?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
with the original layout of everything and the, 74 buildable lots versus 177, I mean, my understanding of it is I don't think it was assisted living. It was 55 and older, how it was classified. Is that, am I misspeaking?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, we had an assisted living building, which was kind of in the middle of the site. And then we had smaller cottage or lots that would be to the east of that could have been independent living. So we were leaving that door open to what the single family lots would have been. But yes, we did have an assisted living facility planned as part of the original application of Pollard.
Okay.
And that's what you see there in the middle was the assisted living. And then to the west of that were the smaller lots that could have possibly been independent living or just for sale, standard lots as well.
So really, the difference here is really taking out the assisted living piece of it and then making all of that houses, correct?
Correct.
Jared?
And so removing the assisted living, and we have increased the overall density. So instead of the assisted living being there, which you can see, we have added more homes to it. So yes, the density obviously has increased. So that's from what the original plan is to what it is now.
Okay. Jared or Matthew, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
I guess a quick question. I really appreciate the the kind of transition on the eastern boundary of the plot, and along a lot of the eastern end of the northern boundary as well. One thing I'm kind of wrestling with a little bit is that transition space to the north, to Alden Ridge, and kind of it seems like in the process of kind of revising this plan, we added kind of some 4 homes on that westernmost block. I wanted to just get some insight into it. Seems like while you did a really good job on the eastern boundary, it seems like maybe we're struggling with a little bit of the transition space to the north. And I know that there's some stuff you can do regarding the block face length, and I know that's more of a council thing, but I'm wondering, did you guys look at killing 2 birds with 1 stone with some pedestrian access, and possibly slightly reducing that back down 1 or 2 lots? Like I feel like there's just a little bit of more work that could be done on that northern boundary.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Smith, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good question. So there's 2 parts to the answer there is We did look at what the lot widths were, Alden Ridge, or 50 feet, and we also went 50 feet wide. But there is a little nuance here, is that Alden Ridge actually has a 30-foot landscape buffer between their lots and our lots in that section. And so we're not actually back to back. There is a separation. I do know that that is their open space. That's not our open space, but that was part of their project where they created a 30-foot landscape buffer. So from an additional buffering, I don't know what that would be. If it was a question of, maybe reducing in width a few of those, we could look at that. But I think there's a really sufficient buffer between us and them, specifically along that row of homes. If you went back and you looked at their plat, it would show that there's a 30-foot landscape buffer along their southern boundary against our property. Kind of hard to see there, but that's what's there. Kind of where it says old school right there. That's a existing private road that goes across their property and services the two other properties to the east, the 5-acre and the 15-acre. And that old school road goes away, I believe, with their plan and becomes an open space corridor. Once the roadway connections are made that we are providing through our property to both Alden Ridge and to those other properties.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Sandoval, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing on Pollard North. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
struggling with this one. I mean, the first thing that I see, especially with this map view, and that's why it's one of the first things I asked for, is it seems a little out of place with everything that's going on. And I understand the commercial element to the south of it and how that would be convenient for people, depending on what's put in there. It is by a major corridor as well, so as much as it seems out of place, the density is not inappropriate for that area. It just seems out of place for where it's at. And the reason I struggle with this is because, I mean, I have kids that can't afford houses. We can't all live in $1 million homes. So this is an alternative for them. So, the people that are starting out and need to start somewhere, especially if these homes are for purchase. So, and a lot of people, I mean, I know a lot of people with active lifestyles that don't, they don't want a yard. They don't want any of that stuff. They just want a place to park their bikes and kayaks and things like that so they can go elsewhere to enjoy life. So I know that kind of living is something that's sought after in the valley. But again, the thing that I struggle with this is just the density as it sits, especially when you're looking at this view right here, it just seems out of place for what it is. I think going back to the original plan of the R8 with the 74 homes in there just fits better. So, and I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. Plus, you don't have the block face elements and things like that where we have to do a whole bunch of things to approve something that's not, that's non-standard. So I'm torn on it, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't like this plan at all. They were prepared to make Levi Lane and Waverton with 74 homes. And, they made the infrastructure in there with the anticipation of those two things. So that was already anticipated with, and I understand also that the market changes. So, okay, now an assisted living facility doesn't fit, but does that one building then turn into another 100 homes? And that's where I'm struggling with. And, having a hospital right in front of this, I hope y'all like sirens because they're going to be coming through. It's going to be a challenge, I think, no matter what you have based on what's happening at the time of its being built. As a community, we don't have control of the space that's not developed in front of us. So if your developer told you one thing, he didn't have the right to tell you exactly what it was going to be because he doesn't own it to tell you that, right? But, you know, plans are kind of put in place and it feels a little like a bait and switch, but also market changes at the same time. I am not comfortable with 177 homes here. I will not support this application. I agree that Brighton should do something to accommodate the fact that the assisted living's not there, or maybe not be the 55 and older that they had planned. But this just seems too dense to fit everything in, regardless of the infrastructure, because they planned the infrastructure with 75 homes anyway. Commissioners, what else do you guys think?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sandoval.
Yeah, plans change, I get it. But if you're switching from assisted living to much higher density and it's a financial reason, just say that. Presuming and stating that, you know, because of COVID, these projections are dramatically, you know, altered or changed. Be ready to back that with some statistics or a study, because I think that's a little bit of a leap. After listening to the community input here and just considering that dramatic increase in density, I don't think the rezone's appropriate or the density change. I think it's going to really affect those neighbors in an adverse manner. So yeah, I'm not in favor of recommending approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Rust?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. A couple of things that I want to point out. This is already zoned for R8. If you applied the max density, we'd be at 158 dwelling lots, which is, you know, what is that, 19 lower than what the applicant is coming back and asking for. And so I think it's a little bit of a misnomer for us to sit here and think, well, we're doubling the number of housing units here. There's going to be a significant increase, even if they came back with a different plan that was R8. We could get 90% of this and it would be allowed by zoning. We talk a lot about cost of housing, and Commissioner Seal, I appreciate what you said. I think it's important that we have a variety of housing types where people can get in and actually afford a starter home. That's changing by the year with inflation and everything else that's happening in our economy. And these carriage homes, it might not be what I would want to live in now with 7 kids, but there was a moment in time where I've loved to live in a establishment like that. I also think that we talk a lot about density and where it fits and where it doesn't. And I understand the concerns of the neighbors around, but fundamentally we're talking about a piece of ground, 20 acres, that's at the intersection of Chinden and Highway 16. I'm not sure that we are going to have a better location for density of this kind. You know, I think the reality is if this doesn't get developed, and I'm not advocating for a bait and switch in the future, but adjusting to business plans, like this is prime multifamily spot. Somebody's going to come in and look at this. If this doesn't happen, that's going to be on the table. That will bring even more housing into this area. So I like the fact that it's either a BTR concept or a starter home, probably likely a starter home with my understanding of where economics are for building these days. I like the fact that, yes, Levi Lane is now a 5-lane entrance. They oversized it to begin with, and you're going to have so much accessibility here. And I think a lot of the traffic that some of the neighbors have talked about is going to end up exiting onto Levi and not coming through Waverton. Levi is going to be the better collector and exit onto Chinden than Black Cat would be over to the east. So for all those reasons, I'm going to be supporting this development.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Grace?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not convinced that the transition as articulated between commercial and residential is a valid basis for the change, the rezone change. I just don't, it just didn't resonate with me. The developer has a good reputation. I'm not sure I'd characterize it as a bait and switch, but it does look like a little bit of an attempt to build more homes, honestly. And it's 2 times the density. And the the applicant sort of admitted that it's, you get less, you get more dense, you get more traffic, you get more demand on schools, you get more demand for services. I do appreciate the developer's contribution to the transportation system and the utilities. But I also know that things change. And that's sort of the risk of business. You rely on certain things and the other developer relied on certain things, and abutting residents rely on certain things. So, I think ultimately I quoted it, what Kyle said, and that it was just to stay true to the approved zoning. And I think that's probably where I am with this application.
Commissioner Smith?
Madam Chair, yeah. I really appreciate Commissioner Russ what you said about kind of the max density under RA, because I kind of was thinking that, and I arrived at a similar down a similar path, but I think I arrived at a slightly different conclusion. And before he said that, I was looking at this and saying, I think a lot of the problems that I have with it would be solved by about 20 fewer houses or 20 fewer units. And so I think that is, I guess as a percentage, it is, 90% or something like that of the final percentage. But when we're looking at the block face stuff, when we're looking at kind of some, it meets the statutory requirements of open space, but I don't love kind of the open space layout. The issues I have are in degree, not in kind. I do think the proximity to the CG zone. I do think the R8 medium density residential designation in the flume. I do think its proximity to major transit corridors, transit oriented development is a massive boon to long-term effective planning. I think there are a lot of things going for it. I really just have an issue in that last 10%. And so what I don't want is, I don't know that I can support this, but I don't want denial of this, at least from my perspective, to look like fully abandon this plan. Because I think in general, thematically, I think that the plan is close, but I just don't think that transition to the north, I think the block facing thing, I think there are a lot of different small things that add up to be some significant concerns. They could all be solved by kind of just a small reduction in the housing. I'm not saying that it needs to go back to 70s. I'm not saying it needs to even stay at 110. It's not my place to say necessarily how many the plan should have. I'm okay with increasing the density here. I think this kind of housing is what our community needs. It just, I think, doesn't fully transition with that northern boundary as well as it could. And I think there's some really simple solutions that could be arrived at by just going back to the drawing board and revising this slightly. So I don't think I agree with some of the views of some of my fellow commissioners around it being drastically too much. I really think it's close, to be honest, from my perspective. But it's just on the edge. I don't think I can support this, but I would love for the developer to give it another crack in the near future, because I do think that they're close.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Seal?
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same lines as Commissioner Smith, where it's, I mean, I understand that this is going to be R8 and that the amount of houses that are in there are going to increase. But if we stick with the R8, then there's different rules that are going to be applied for open space and amenities as well. So it's probably not going to hit that 159 marker. So I think that the original plan, replacing the assisted living with housing is probably more in line with what fits in this area. I think that, I definitely would not go any lower than R8 for this area. considering where it's at and the access that's provided. But at the same time, I think that, you know, that would give the applicant, you know, plenty of opportunity to be able to put more housing in there and, you know, without drastically altering the plan as it's set out. And it still feels, you know, I mean, the density of it and, you know, the cost point of the housing is probably going to be a little bit more appropriate in there as well. So, because like I said, what's sitting there right now just doesn't fit in my mind. So, you know, and I mean, there's a lot of Brighton developments and stuff out there that do have $1 million homes and, you know, large multifamily and things like that. And generally they have quality construction and quality homes. I would expect this to be no different, but I just think for where this is at and what the ask is on the application, that the R8 is more appropriate. And I don't think I can support the rezone.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Smith,
One thing I do want to add, just in light of what Commissioner Seal said, you get 6 commissioners. I think you have 8 opinions. But I don't have an issue at all with the TNR, you know, rezone. To be honest, I'd be fine with it as R8. But I think some of the issues, and I know the waiver discussion is a council decision, but I think some of the things where they're out of compliance with the TNR requirements are some things that they could improve the product vastly while also getting into compliance with that. So I think it's, you know, I'm lining up somewhere between maybe Commissioner Seal and Commissioner Russ on the spectrum of opinions tonight. But yeah, I don't personally have an issue with the TNR. I don't know if that's how the rest of the commission feels. I don't know that. I'm not sure what the norms or the expectations are about, you know, advisory opinions, if you will. But I guess that's just my perspective regarding any future changes. I don't know that, you know, some of the block face, or sorry, some of the lot size requirements and things like that regarding you know, R8 requirements. I actually think maybe some of the benefit here might not be through expanding the lot sizes necessarily, but by increasing open space and increasing some pedestrian accesses and providing additional amenities. That's the route that I see some improvement going. I don't necessarily have an issue with the lot sizes themselves. So again, I think we have different opinions. I just wanted to communicate that perspective as well to give additional feedback to the applicant.
okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to make a motion. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend denial to City Council for file number H 2024-0037 as presented in the public hearing of December 5th for the following reasons. The rezone creates too much density for the area, and the transition for low density is not enough.
Second.
It's been moved and second to deny file number 0037. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey.
And mine is aye as well. Motion carries. Can I have one more motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Rust.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adjourn.
Thank you
All
all.
those in favor say aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
night.
you.